My elder brother has a girlfriend. When we met for the first time, she said, "How come daughters in your family can also inherit property?" At the second meeting, she disliked the gift I gave her. "You can give away a Louis Vuitton?" I was furious and was about to tear this green tea apart. Unexpectedly, my brother was even quicker and directly announced the breakup on moments. Girlfriends can be changed. But there is only one younger sister. I have known since I was young that my brother is a face con. Back then, when a group of kids were playing with four-wheeled after racing cars, other little boys were discussing which car was faster. Only my brother waved his hand grandly and chose the racing car that looked the best. At that time, I thought this jerk would be deceived by women in the future. As I expected. During the summer vacation of my junior year, my brother brought a girlfriend to meet me. That girlfriend is truly astonishingly beautiful. A goddess with a first love style. Long black straight hair, a small white dress, fair skin, and watery eyes. My brother's eyes are almost glued to her. But my intuition as a woman tells me that this woman is not simple. Sure enough, when that woman named Sissy looked at me for the first time, her gaze fell on the Chanel on my shoulder. She pursed her lips and spoke softly. "Oh, Henry. I didn't expect that you are usually so frugal. But your younger sister is very delicate." My brother casually replied. "There's no way. My parents just spoil my younger sister. My family is nouveau rich. My father adheres to the principle of raising sons in poverty and raising daughters in wealth. So since I was young, my pocket money has been hundreds of times that of my brother." Sissy probably also noticed this. She pursed her lips and pretended to be surprised and said, "Really? In our hometown, girls can't ask their families for money after they become adults. After working, they still have to support their elder brothers and younger brothers." When I heard this, I was immediately unhappy. What does it mean? I am the biological daughter of my parents. Can't I spend my parents' money anymore? Before I could even retort a few words, unexpectedly, my brother spoke first. "Why?" I saw this straight man ask sincerely with a soulful question. "Are the elder brothers and younger brothers in your place without hands or feet? Do they have to rely on others to support them?" Sissy's smile froze. Theft. I couldn't help laughing out loud. This meal ended in discord. As soon as Sissy left, I couldn't help asking my brother, "Brother, what kind of person did you find? So poisoned by the thought of favoring sons over daughters." My brother was helpless. "Don't blame Sissy. Think carefully. Isn't she a victim of this kind of thought? She is just brainwashed by her family. In fact, she is quite pitiful." My brother told me that Sissy has a younger brother. She has never been valued by her family since she was young. She is used to making sacrifices for her family and never considers herself. When my brother first met her, he saw that she worked for her younger brother until she had low blood sugar and still couldn't bear to buy herself lunch. My brother sighed softly. That's when I felt pity for her. But I mercilessly exposed him. "Come on. In fact, you just took a fancy to her beauty." My brother's face stiffened. But he still concluded, "Anyway, Sissy is quite pitiful. When I think about it in my heart. Yes. After all, she is also a victim in the end. So I'm magnanimous decided not to hold it against her." The next day at her birthday party, I even brought a gift. "Sister-in-law," I said with a smile. "Happy birthday. Here's a bag for you." What I gave was a new LV model because I remembered my brother said she was going to work. "This bag is most suitable for commuting." "Thank you." Sissy was full of joy. But when she opened the gift box and saw the bag inside, her smile froze. "What's wrong?" I noticed the change in her expression. "Don't you like it?" "No." Sissy pouted. "I just thought that a rich young lady like you would give her mess at least Chanel. I didn't expect it to be just LV. What the heck? When did LV become something unworthy of mention? This is also tens of thousands." I was looking at Sissy in confusion. Unexpectedly, Sissy had already smiled at me. "It's okay. Yo. I know you didn't mean it. You may just be so stingy because you don't like me as your sister-in-law. But it doesn't matter. I believe you will accept me one day. Saying that, she also showed me a strong and optimistic smile, like the heroine of a Korean drama. I was so angry that I almost spat out blood. It doesn't matter, it doesn't matter. I'm the one who matters. Damn it. 3. I was extremely angry because of Sissy. But it was at her party. So I couldn't lose my temper. In the middle of the party, I went to the bathroom. But unexpectedly, as soon as I squatted down, I heard the voices of Sissy and her several girlfriends. Hey, is that little beauty today Henry's younger sister? I didn't believe it when I heard that Henry was a rich second generation before. But today when I saw his sister, oh my, wearing all designer brands, I completely believe it now. But their family is really strange. So generous to daughters but stingy to sons. Won't there be favoritism and inheritance in the future? Sissy's proud voice soon rang out. Don't worry. I will never let this happen. I am brainwashing Henry with the situation of my younger brother and me every day. Let him fight for the property and definitely not give a penny to her sister. I was so angry that I almost jumped up from the toilet. Goodness. What a victim of the thought of favoring sons over daughters. It turns out that this woman Sissy takes the thought of favoring sons over daughters as a tool and only says what is beneficial to her. I was so angry that I directly kicked open the compartment door. At the moment she saw me, Sissy's face turned pale with fright. Yo, why are you here? But I directly started scolding without hesitation. Why can't I be here? If I weren't here today, I still wouldn't know what you are planning. I was brewing my anger and preparing to fully display my hot-tempered persona. But unexpectedly, before I could officially launch an attack, Sissy's eyelids flipped and she fainted. Fainted. I was suddenly stunned. Before I could react, Sissy's girlfriends had already screamed quickly with sharp eyes and quick hands. Yo. You scared Sissy into fainting. For Sissy's girlfriends, loud voices soon attracted others, including my brother. Everyone was blocked together. Before I could speak, those girlfriends started chatting in a hurry. Henry, Sissy is your girlfriend. You must stand up for her. Yes. Your sister is too arrogant. She was yelling that all your family property is hers. Sissy just said a word for you a little. And she pushed Sissy. Then Sissy fainted. That's right. With such a vicious sister, you must be careful that she will harm you one day. I was stunned. I finally saw what is called telling lies with eyes open. And just at this time, Sissy also woke up in time. I saw her with tears in her eyes, pulling the corner of her girlfriend's clothes and trying to speak for me. Don't blame Yo. Blame myself for not being worthy of their family background. As she said this, she looked at my brother pitifully. At this time, the tears she had been holding back finally rolled down. But Henry, I really like you so much. When Sissy said this, her beauty and pity coexisted, and affection and innocence were mixed. Even as a woman, I was almost softened. I thought my brother, who is a face connoisseur, would definitely be charmed. Sure enough, I saw him squat down and hold Sissy's hand. I thought he was going to speak for Sissy and was so angry that I wanted to explode. Unexpectedly, I heard him speak sincerely. Sissy, you are right. I also think you are not worthy of me. 5. Sissy's pitiful smile froze instantly. She stared at my brother, thinking that there was something wrong with her ears. Henry. What? What did you say just now? But my brother mercilessly punctured her luck. I said, a woman who lies so much like you is really not worthy of me. Only then did Sissy realize. I saw her bite her lip, and tears rolled down again. Henry, don't you believe me? She suddenly raised her head and cried out, I have been in a relationship with you for almost a year. But you don't want to believe me but believe your sister. That tone was as if my brother had done something extremely heinous and sorry to her. But my brother looked at her with an expression of looking at an idiot. You said that. I have only been in a relationship with you for a year. But my sister and I have grown up together for more than 20 years. According to your logic, isn't it reasonable that I trust my sister more than you? The resentment on Sissy's face was instantly stuck. She opened her mouth to refute. But it seemed that she realized that what my brother said was so reasonable that she didn't know how to refute for a while. And on this side, my brother was too lazy to talk nonsense with her and directly pulled me and walked out. I was still a little stunned. It wasn't until my brother dragged me to the door that I came to my senses. I quickly said, "Brother, wait a minute." As I said that, I quickly went to the box next door, grabbed the LV bag I gave to Sissy on the sofa next to me just now and came out again. I sneered at Sissy. "You don't like the LV I gave you, right? Well, I take it back." "Just kidding. My family is rich. But not a sucker. Want me to give a bag to such a woman? No way." Regardless of Sissy's green face, I held the bag in one hand and my brother in the other, and left swaggering lie without looking back. 6. It wasn't until I got in my brother's car that I fully came to my senses and looked at my brother. "I can't see it. Henry, how did you, a face connoisseur, become smart today?" In my impression, my brother is the kind of person who only has eyes and forgets to have a brain. When he sees a beautiful woman, he loses his thinking ability and is easily fooled by those good-looking green teas. Unexpectedly, he performed exceptionally well today and saw Sissy's true face at a glance. My brother rolled his eyes towards the sky without any image. "I just like beautiful girls. Not really stupid." After being in a relationship for so long, I actually saw long ago that Sissy loves to lie. Only, my brother frowned and considered his words. "Only I am broad-minded. I can turn a blind eye to harmless lies." I mercilessly exposed him again. "Come on. You think her beauty makes you turn a blind eye?" My brother. He pretended not to hear what I said and continued. "But when she lies on your head, I can't tolerate it." I looked at my brother and felt a little touched in my heart for the first time. Unexpectedly, my brother has always bullied me since childhood. At critical moments, he still knows to stand by my side. But before my touch could last too long, I heard my brother continue, "And Sissy didn't use her brain when lying. You are such a lazy person. How could you come and compete with me for family property? With your intelligence, how could you do such a complicated thing?" The little affection between brother and sister that had just surged up in me was instantly shattered. I was so angry that I directly picked up the bag in my hand and hit my brother's face. "Henry, you dog." 7. My brother and Sissy broke up just like that. At least my brother unilaterally announced the breakup. He deleted Sissy's WeChat neatly and directly posted a circle of friends shouting that he is single. But obviously Sissy didn't give up so easily on her side. After all, to be honest, among the second-generation rich, my brother is rarely handsome and has no bad habits. Sissy probably knows that if she misses my brother, she may never find a better one. So she will definitely find a way to win back my brother. I guessed it right. A few days later, a new internet-famous hot pot restaurant opened in the city center. On the first day of opening, my brother and I, 2 foodies, went to eat immediately. When we had eaten until our bellies were round, and were about to leave the restaurant, we suddenly heard a familiar voice crying, "Brother, I really gave you all my money. Even if you beat me to death here today, I can't take out a penny." I looked up and saw Sissy and a young man pulling and tugging at the entrance of the hot pot restaurant. The man looked somewhat similar to Sissy and should be the brother she has always needed to support. Just then, Sissy's brother was grabbing Sissy and yelling angrily, "You stop pretending. Didn't you find a rich second-generation boyfriend? Ask that rich second-generation boyfriend to give you money. I tell you, I am your brother. You must help me pay off my debts, buy a house for me, and cover my living expenses. Did you hear me?" As he spoke, Sissy's brother raised his hand as if to hit Sissy. But this act of hitting was very subtle. He seemed to be hitting hard. But in fact, he didn't touch Sissy at all. And on Sissy's side, it was even more strange. She seemed to be in a mess as if pulled by her brother. But on closer inspection, the mess was so just right. The snow-white dress had been pulled for so long, but there wasn't a single wrinkle. Her hair seemed to be a bit messy, but the effect was as if it had been blown and styled at a hair salon. Every bit of mess was just right, making her look pitiful but not messy. And the makeup on her face was even more complete and charming. Pale but not deathly pale. She looked like a bullied deer, arousing pity. Me. I looked up at my brother beside me and couldn't help but complain. Brother, does Sissy really think you are a fool? I am really speechless now. Anyone with eyes can see that this scene in front of us is Sissy and her brother acting. After all, there aren't so many coincidences in the world. Sissy's brother comes to ask for money. He doesn't ask for it in the community where Sissy lives or at the place where Sissy works. Instead, he asks for it in front of a hot pot restaurant. And it just so happens to be in front of the hot pot restaurant that my brother and I just posted on Moments to Share that we are eating at. Such a clumsy act can only mean that Sissy thinks my brother is an idiot. My brother was also speechless. Before he could speak, Sissy beside him had just happened to see us. Just then, she panicked and ran over, grabbed my brother's arm, and spoke with a crying voice. Henry, please help me tell my brother that we have broken up. I really don't have money to give him anymore. I can't even pay this month's rent and can't afford to eat. When Sissy said this, her vocal cords were choked and her eyes were slightly red. She really looked pitiful. Several boys who were watching the show on the sidelines all showed expressions of pity and couldn't wait to take out their wallets to help this pitiful beauty. But I mercilessly spoke coldly. Really? If you can't even afford to eat, where did you get the money to buy the new perfume? As I spoke, I sniffed and was even more certain. This is Guerlain's new product, right? It just came out last week. Don't you still have money to buy perfume? Oh, and I looked down at her shoes and said with a half smile, I remember these shoes were only available in the last few days. They cost tens of thousands of yuan. In my opinion, you seem to be much richer than your brother. 9. In fact, my brother and I had discussed it before. Sissy's family may not be as patriarchal as she said, and she may not be as pitiful as she said. For example, she usually spends money lavishly. Although my brother is generous to his girlfriend, he is not the kind who gives money unconditionally. A lot of her money must be given by her family. In addition, she is spoiled and her hands are even softer than mine. No matter how you look at it, she doesn't seem to have grown up in a hard life. Being patriarchal is just a tool for her to make herself look pitiful. By the way, she brainwashes my brother and makes my brother take away property from me. At this time, I directly exposed Sissy's lie, and panic indeed flashed in Sissy's eyes. Not only her, but her brother beside her was also a bit nervous. But Sissy's brother's reaction speed was obviously faster than Sissy's. He immediately came to his senses and raised his hand to hit Sissy. You bitch! How dare you spend money recklessly, and not give it to me? See if I don't beat you to death. As he spoke, he actually slapped Sissy in the face. This was obviously a real act of self-torture. But Sissy's brother didn't really hit hard. It sounded fierce. But Sissy's face just turned a little red, making her look even more pitiful. Sissy also immediately reacted and immediately cooperated with her brother's performance. She screamed and fell weakly to the ground. There were already many people coming and going in front of the hot pot restaurant. The quarrel between Sissy and her brother had already attracted many people. With this slap, there were even more onlookers. Many people even pointed at my brother and me and scolded us for being cold-blooded and heartless, having no pity for such a poor girl who was exploited by her family. Some people even started taking videos and wanted to post them online. Only then did I start to have a headache. I looked up at my brother and asked in a low voice, "Brother, shall we repay in kind?" My brother looked at me and nodded firmly. That's what I was thinking. A tacit understanding of doing bad things together since childhood made us understand each other's plans with just one sentence. Just then, Sissy's brother was obviously planning to continue the act. He was raising his hand to hit Sissy again. Just as the slap was about to fall stop, my brother suddenly shouted and rushed over. Seeing my brother finally coming out to play the hero to save the beauty, Sissy's eyes immediately lit up. But before she could be happy, a sudden change occurred after my brother rushed up. He didn't control well and bumped into Sissy's brother's hand. At first glance, it seemed as if Sissy's brother had punched my brother hard. Immediately after, my brother let out a scream and fell to the ground. His eyelids rolled back and he fainted. This sudden plot left Sissy and her brother completely stunned. Before they could react, I had already shouted, "Brother!" I rushed to my brother's side, pretended to check on my brother, and then cried and shouted at Sissy and them, "It's over. My brother had a heart attack. You have to pay." As soon as I said this, Sissy and her brother finally came to their senses. "You are talking nonsense," Sissy hurriedly said. "Where does your brother have a heart problem? Is he my brother? Do I know his physical condition or do you know?" I continued to cry and shout, "My brother has a heart problem. It will flare up when he is frightened or beaten." I made up lies without hesitation. Although what I said was very far-fetched, my acting was good. That nervous look with a crying voice really intimidated Sissy's brother. I didn't hit him," Sissy's brother said nervously. "He rushed up and bumped into me himself." "How can you say you didn't hit him?" While helping up my brother who was pretending to be unconscious, I wiped away tears. "You hit your sister so hard just now. You must have accidentally hit my brother. Dude, you must compensate us. My brother is very precious. And medical expenses are at least several 100,000 yuan. Oh, and there are also loss compensation fees. My brother has a particularly important bidding tomorrow. Now he can't participate. Our family company will lose at least tens of millions. Tell me how much you will compensate." As soon as these random figures I made up popped out, Sissy clearly realized something was wrong and wanted to remind her brother. But her brother is clearly an uneducated person. Completely stunned by my repeated mentions of compensation and several astronomical figures, he began to exonerate himself regardless. "I didn't hit my sister. I was just pretending just now," he shouted. "It's my sister. It's my sister who said to pretend to bully her so that her rich second-generation boyfriend would sympathize with her. It's all my sister's idea. I don't know anything." Sissy's brother is really the worst teammate among teammates. In just a few words, he explained everything clearly. Sissy's face turned green, and the onlookers around realized what was going on. Those who had just spoken for Sissy now began to complain one after another. I thought it was a pitiful beauty. After all this time, it turns out to be a gold digger pretending to be pitiful. Fortunately, the rich second-generation people are not stupid. I guess they have already seen through her. Amid countless taunts, Sissy finally couldn't bear it anymore and covered her face and cried. And Sissy's brother hurriedly dropped a sentence, "Don't ask me for compensation." Then he also quickly ran away. And I looked down and saw my brother who had secretly opened his eyes. I smiled knowingly. Done. 11. I originally thought that after what happened at the entrance of the hot pot restaurant, Sissy should give up on my brother. But apparently I underestimated her persistence. A month later, when I returned from traveling with my friends, as soon as I got home, my brother grabbed me in a panic. "It's over. It's over. I've been tricked by Sissy." From my brother's confused description, I finally understood what was going on. Last night, a rich second-generation friend of my brother opened a new club. My brother went to support it and unexpectedly met Sissy. Sissy said that she had let it go and wanted to have one last drink with my brother. Then she poured wine for my brother. But she actually put something in the wine. Sissy still thought she could deceive me. At this point, my brother looked smug. Our family is in the wine business. I know so much about wine. As soon as I smelled it, I realized something was wrong. So I pretended to drink it. but actually poured it all out. I was puzzled. Then how were you tricked? My brother's face was embarrassed. I was drunk. I suddenly understood. By the way, my brother's alcohol tolerance is even worse than his taste in women. 1 drink makes him dizzy. 2 drinks, and he's knocked out. It is also this poor alcohol tolerance that limits him from becoming a dissolute rich second generation, and finally he can only study hard and be down to earth. According to my brother's description, after he got drunk, he didn't completely lose consciousness, but he was also groggy and directly opened a room in a nearby hotel. Unexpectedly, Sissy delivered herself to the door. My brother opened the door drunk and with a muddled mind. Unexpectedly, she refused to leave. I couldn't help frowning as I listened. So did you to do that? My brother shook his head like a rattle. Of course not. You still don't know me. When I'm drunk, my whole body is like mud. I'm not in the mood to do that kind of thing. I thought it was indeed the case. Although my brother has poor alcohol tolerance, his drinking manners are okay, and he won't black out. Since he swore so firmly that nothing happened, then it should be true that nothing happened. But what's giving me a headache is... My brother looked at me hesitantly. The next day, Sissy told me that something happened between us. At this point, my brother humbly asked me, Yo-yo, you said that clearly nothing happened between us. But Sissy insists that something happened? What is she after? Money? But she didn't ask me for money? It can't be that she wants me to be responsible, right? Indeed. If Sissy and my brother weren't ex-boyfriend and girlfriend, then if Sissy made such a fuss and asked my brother to be responsible, it would make some sense. Or if Sissy just wants money, that can also be understood. But Sissy doesn't want money or my brother to be responsible, but insists that something happened that night. This is indeed a bit strange. I thought about it. Based on my reasoning ability from watching dramas for many years, I roughly had an idea. I calculated the days and said, wait. I estimate that she will come to find you again in another month. 12. I was indeed right. A month later, Sissy appeared on time downstairs of my brother's company. She handed the report in her hand to my brother, and said with red eyes and a pitiful look, Henry, I'm pregnant with your child. These shocking words. If I, the prophet, hadn't given my brother a heads up in advance, I guess my brother would be so scared that he would pass out on the spot. But now with my advance rehearsal, my brother is very calm inside. He just used his $3 acting skills to show appropriate shock. Is it that night? Sissy blushed and lowered her head and nodded. I saw my brother roll his eyes hard where she couldn't see. I could almost hear his inner complaint. I didn't touch you that night. What are you pregnant with? Air? But my brother still held back his urge to complain, and just asked in a low voice, what do you want to do? Sissy's eyes reddened again. Tears were swirling in her eyes. She looked up at my brother and carefully said, I want to give birth to this child. Henry. Will you give this child a proper status? That pitiful look. If I didn't know her true face in advance, I might think she is an innocent little white flower. But now that I know her true face, I just want to give her an Oscar for Best Actress. After Sissy finished speaking, and saw that my brother didn't answer immediately, her eyes became even redder. Sorry. I shouldn't have come to disturb you. I will give birth to this child, and take good care of it by myself. Saying that, she turned around and was about to leave. What a good move of retreating to advance. But as soon as she turned around, my brother grabbed her. Don't worry. My brother looked down at her affectionately. Sissy, I will definitely give this child a real status. When Sissy heard my brother's words, she was stunned at first, but then burst into excited tears. This time the tears are real. She threw herself at my brother and cried out, Henry, I knew you still loved me. Watching the scene beside them, I could barely hold back my laughter. Love you? Wait until you figure out what status we will give you. Then you can think my brother loves you. 13. My brother told Sissy that he had asked someone to check the calendar. There is an auspicious day a month later that is suitable for getting married. Hearing this, Sissy was overjoyed and immediately began preparing for the wedding. She asked my brother what kind of wedding he wanted. But my brother said to her, "This is your wedding. Choose according to what you like. You don't need to ask me." My brother only put forward two requirements. First, he said that my parents had important business abroad and could only come back on the wedding day. I couldn't meet Sissy before that. Second, this wedding is too rushed. Don't invite so many people for now. Just invite some family members. When there is time in the future, we will hold a big aisle and wedding abroad and invite relatives and friends. Sissy happily agreed. Not only did she agree, but she also specially invited me out for coffee to show off to me. Yo, your brother is really my mister. Right. We almost missed each other. But fortunately, with this child in my belly, we lovers are finally united. This child is really the best gift God has given me. As she spoke, she exaggerated shed tears, then picked up a tissue to wipe her tears. By the way, she deliberately showed off the big diamond and ring on her finger. I had a hard time holding back my laughter. And Sissy was so immersed in her own pride that she didn't notice the strangeness in my expression. She still hypocritically said, Yo, I know you don't like me, but I will be your sister-in-law in the future. We still have to try to get along well. I quickly picked up my coffee cup and drank coffee to keep myself from laughing. Want to be my sister-in-law? In your next life. 14. I could see that actually Sissy was still a little nervous at first. After all, she knew better than anyone else that the child in her belly was not my brother's at all. And now medical technology is so advanced that a paternity test can be done when it's more than 2 months old. So of course she was nervous. But probably my brother was so good to her that he never mentioned suspecting the child from the beginning to the end. As time passed, Sissy completely relaxed. She even pestered my brother to go for her prenatal checkup with her. When their 11-week prenatal checkup was over, it was time for the wedding. On the wedding day, Sissy put on the wedding dress she had carefully chosen and was beaming with joy, waiting for the groom to come and pick her up. But unexpectedly, she suddenly got the news that the groom wouldn't come. Something happened. Who came to pass on the message, said with a fake smile. The groom can't come to pick up the bride. The bride should go by herself. The groom is already waiting for you at the hotel. Sissy kept asking me what was wrong with my brother. But I just smiled and didn't say anything. I just vaguely said, the groom has some urgent matters at work. This answer was obviously not satisfactory. After all, what work matter could be more important than getting married? Sissy's parents' expressions were also not good at the moment. But now that things had come to this point, the wedding couldn't be cancelled. Not to mention, this marriage was obtained by Sissy through all kinds of scheming. How could she give up? Thinking of this, she could only endure the humiliation and get into the wedding car alone. What are you still filming for? She scolded the wedding photographer beside her. Then looked at me and said hatefully, Yo, did you do something? I tell you, after I marry into your family and give birth to a son, see how I deal with you. I just found it funny when I heard this. I didn't expect that Sissy still thought I was her enemy until now. You should know that her real enemy from beginning to end is her own greed. Sissy soon arrived at the wedding scene. Although the beginning wasn't very pleasant, after she arrived at the scene, she quickly smiled again with shyness and happiness. I knew that she wanted everyone to think that she was really happy. Led by her father, she walked through the sea of flowers and finally reached the front of the groom. She gently raised her head and looked at the groom. She was just about to show a carefully designed shy smile. But when she saw the groom's face clearly, she was stunned. She blurted out in surprise, Charles, why are you here? 15. As it turned out, the groom in front of her was not my brother at all. Instead, it was Charles, who had been Sissy's backup and admirer for so many years. Sissy panicked and quickly looked around and shouted, There's a mistake. I'm not the bride of this wedding. My groom is Henry. Did you bring me to the wrong place? At this point, Sissy still thought she had walked into the wrong venue. Until I sneered and reminded her beside her. What's wrong? Today's wedding is to give a status to the child in your belly. Charles is the father of the child in your belly. Is there any problem with him being the groom? Sissy's face turned pale in an instant. How do you know? She almost blurted out. But before she finished speaking, she realized and quickly denied it. You're talking nonsense. The child in my belly is Henry's. What does it have to do with Charles? I laughed and picked up the paternity test in my hand. Really? But the paternity test you did during your prenatal checkup a few days ago clearly states that Charles is the father of the child in your belly. When my brother told me about how Sissy had schemed against him, I suspected that Sissy wanted to use the child to force my brother to give in. So I asked a private detective to investigate. Sure enough, I found out that a few days before Sissy schemed against my brother, she spent the night with Charles. This Charles is actually also a rich second generation. But in terms of looks and family property, he can't compare with my brother. So all these years Sissy has just been keeping him as a backup. Until after being dumped by my brother. Sissy drank too much out of sadness and then had something happen with Charles. After it happened, Sissy calculated that this time was a bit dangerous. She originally wanted to buy some medicine to take. But later on she thought about it, and decided to use this opportunity to scheme against my brother. A month later, she was indeed pregnant. It must be Charles's child. But she came to my brother and asked him to take responsibility. After I investigated all this clearly, I immediately found Charles and told him the whole story. When Charles learned that Sissy was pregnant with his child, he was overjoyed. But when he learned that Sissy wanted this child to recognize my brother as his father, he was depressed again. I told him that we could let him be the groom. This is not a problem in itself. He is indeed the father of the child in Sissy's belly. Didn't Sissy clamor to give this child a real status? Then let's give it to her. It has to be said that this Charles is really Sissy's sycophant. Knowing that the person Sissy wants to marry is my brother, he still agreed to the plan. So there is today's scene. Realizing that she was tricked, Sissy was furious and threw the flowers in her hand hard. Henry. Yo. If you dare to trick me, just wait and see. 16 But obviously, Sissy can't make us wait and see anymore. Because her own life has become too much for her to handle. After she knew that the plan had been exposed, she immediately gave up Charles's child in her belly. This must be the stupidest decision of her life. In fact, Charles is not a bad choice. His family background is also good and can ensure that Sissy has no worries about food and clothing for the rest of her life. Not to mention that Charles really loves her very much. Perhaps Sissy can be happy if she marries him. But Sissy is just too ambitious. Moreover, because Sissy once thought she could marry my brother, and suddenly being replaced by Charles created a huge sense of disparity. This is why she doesn't want to marry Charles anyway. So she gave up the child without hesitation. And what she did completely hurt Charles. How much Charles was looking forward to this child. But Sissy gave up this child without even consulting him. Charles began to turn love into hate. The most terrifying thing in this world is this kind of sycophant's transformation from love to hate. The deeper he loved before, the crazier he hates now. He will constantly think of his past tolerance and meekness. The more he thinks about it, the more he hates. This is exactly Charles. He began to torture Sissy crazily. He destroyed Sissy's new relationships everywhere, ruined Sissy's reputation, and made Sissy lose her job. In the end, Sissy had no choice but to marry him. When I got the news that Sissy married Charles, I just thought this was the second stupid decision this woman made. If I were Sissy, I would definitely go abroad or go to a place where Charles's power cannot reach and live on my own. But Sissy can't do it. She has thought about relying on men to live all her life. Since Charles made it impossible for her to find a better man, she came back to find Charles. But she forgot that Charles is no longer the sycophant who is obedient to her. In TV dramas, a broken mirror can be reunited. After the male lead turns love into hate, He can still fall in love with the female lead again. But reality is not like that. Charles married Sissy only to take revenge on her. He doesn't love her anymore. He just wants to destroy her. My brother and I saw Sissy again after 5 years. In just 5 years. Such a stunning beauty once has become extremely haggard and dim. I almost didn't recognize her. Someone told me that Charles and she got divorced. Charles had planned long ago to make Sissy get almost no property at all. After so many years of youth, she got nothing in exchange. The once proud appearance capital has also been wasted. And over all these years, she hasn't improved her inner self and abilities at all. So when she saw me and my brother again, how could she still have the once lofty attitude? Instead, she didn't dare to look at us and turned around and left. I heard my brother beside me sigh. I looked up at him. Do you feel sorry? My brother shook his head. She brought it on herself. Indeed. Although my brother and I also contributed to what happened back then. But in fact, we were also involved by Sissy. What we did was just tell Charles about the child. Everything else was chosen by Sissy herself. My brother thought of something again and raised his hand to touch my head. Yo. Remember, girls still have to rely on themselves. I nodded gently.